Hi there, I'm Mary Susie from Bead Me a Story. Thanks so much for joining me today. We will be making the Victorian Beaded Snowflake Ornament. And you can see this is 4 sides. It's kind of a diamond shaped snowflake. A lot of fun to make. We're using rubber in this, as well as anodized aluminum jump rings, and of course seed beads all around the outside. I think this is probably ideal for an experienced beginner. You should have at least done a helm weave chain before, and other than that, let's just go ahead and get started making this. I think you're going to have a great time learning to make this and want to make lots and lots of these for the holidays to give as gifts. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first part of this project is the part that's going to take us the longest, but still very easy. I think almost anybody can do this. So you notice that I've gone ahead and pre-opened all of my jump rings. So I did it for this part and for the parts that are going to happen later. So basically all we're going to do is take our first jump ring. I'm going to pick up a 12mm O-ring in the color A. So the color A, we have a bunch of those, and then color B, we only have 4 of these in our kit, and then another color A. So A, B, and A. Okay, and then I'm going to pick up 2 of these 6mm O-rings. Okay, and I got to get these on too. So you can see I'm cramming a lot on here. Now, I want to show you a secret to this. So when you're using rubber O-rings and metal jump rings together, it's really easy to tear the rubber O-rings. So what you want to make sure to do is see how I got the tip of the jump ring up over the horizon of the rubber O-ring. So the horizon being like the top point. So as long as I get it up over the top point, then it's usually fairly easy to grab the jump ring and close it. And you'll notice I'm allowing my pliers to go down inside this O-ring. I'm not grabbing any of the O-ring because then of course I could tear it. But I am allowing the tips of my pliers, and that's a big reason for using bent nose pliers, especially when I'm working in rubber, is that it can go down into the O-rings. Okay, so I've got that. Now I'm going to take a second jump ring, and this is basically a helm weave that's happening, okay, where we have one ring that gets sandwiched between the others, except for this is going to be a 3-sided situation. So I'm going to pass through, I'm going to pick up one color A, I'm going to pass through my color B, and I'm going to pick up another color A. Now I want to show you something else, another trick. So you notice that this side of the jump ring is closer, the prong of it is closer to these 2 smaller O-rings. So I like to turn my pliers around and grab the back side of the jump ring, and that's just so that I can reach over to this pair of 6mm O-rings easier. Okay, so I picked up 2 new A O-rings, but I'm using the same 6mm O-rings as I did in the first step. So these new pairs are sharing this, okay? And then you see that the color B is inside of these. All right, now for the next part, I'm going to set aside my color A O-rings that are 12mm in size, and I'm going to pick up a jump ring, and then this time I'm passing through all 3 of these layers, the A, the B, and the A, and I'm going to pick up 2 new 6mm O-rings. Now, I actually forgot. When I sit down to do a video, you know, I'm not in flow anymore. I already made a bunch of these this morning, but what I wanted to show you is that when I do this step, I prefer to put on the smaller O-rings, the 6mm first, and then pass through the 3 layers. I think it's easier to go through any smaller O-rings that you have first, And then, just like before, remember how I said we need to be up over the horizon. So the horizon being this point in the middle here, where the seam is on the O-ring. Get up over that, and then you'll be able to close this very easily. Okay, and then we're going to do another one on the other side. So this would be like my right side, and now I'm going to do my left side, but there really are no sides because we can just flip this over so that since I'm right-handed, I can reach that right-hand side. Okay, so I picked up my two 6mm O-rings, and I'm passing through all three layers again, the A, the B, and the A O-ring. Okay, so two colors going on there. And I just might see how my jump ring just went over the horizon. Now I'm good. And I can reach in here, grab the other side of the jump ring, and close. Okay, so we are almost done with this step for this component. So now you see I added my smalls, and then these last two are going to get added in between here. Okay, now one thing I want you to be a little bit concerned with before you start this next step is that we're probably not going to get that red O-ring, the B O-ring, to be perfectly even right now in the center of this, but I want to have some of it, more of it pulled out to use. So what I'm going to do is I like to take a jump ring and I hook through just this B O-ring and I pull. Okay, and I'm pulling it out so I've got more of this to use, and that's going to help even out the three sides. Okay, so that's all I was doing there, was exposing more of this center O-ring so that when I go to do the next step I've got more of it to latch onto. Okay, so now I'm going to take my jump ring, and again I'm going to go through my pair of 6mm O-rings first. I'm going to pick up the 12mm O-ring A. I'm going to pass through the B, and I'm going to feed my jump ring through a little bit more, give myself a little bit more to work with, and then I'm going to pick up the second O-ring A. Okay, close that jump ring. You can see on our table we only have one left to do. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing over on this side. I'm going to pass through the two 6mm O-rings. I'm going to pass through the A 12mm O-ring I just put on, the B that was already there, and the A. Okay, I made sure that you can see that went up over the horizon. And we're going to close our jump ring. Okay, and that is one component finished. Okay, not so bad. Now we're going to make 3 more of these. So I have pre-made mine. Okay, and I've got 4, and then I'm going to bring in a 20mm O-ring. So this is the biggest size of rubber O-ring that I carry, and what's going to happen is we're going to be connecting all of these to this center O-ring. Okay, but I'm just going to show you one at a time, so let's remove these other 3. Just wanted to make sure that you saw that we have to make all of those before we start this next step. And then what's going to happen here is we're going to have 2 jump rings attaching to this 6mm O-ring and the 20mm O-ring. Okay, and that's to the pair of 6mm O-rings, just to be clear. And then this one over here will attach to these 2 12mm O-rings. Just my color A. You can see the B is all embedded in the middle. That's just adding color for us. And then we're going to do one over here too. Okay, so let me get cranking with this. And once again, I like to go through the small O-rings first. You know, the hole starts getting a little small now. We've got a 3rd jump ring going through here. And Now that was enough. I will mention with this project, you might want to open your jump rings just a touch more. Okay, don't go crazy opening your jump rings way too wide. But you know, being that we're going through 2 and 3 layers at a time, you may need to open up just a little slightly more than you normally do. But so far I've been okay. I've made several of these now. Okay, this is my second one going through the 6mm O-rings. Okay, and even though this is just one O-ring, same concept here. We want this up over the horizon. And then we can close. So anyway, if you open your jump rings too much, you can really mangle them and not be able to get back to a perfect circle again. So, you know, if you're new, be wary of that. You notice I only open my jump rings like maybe a quarter of the way. So it's not open too much, but if you're an experienced chainmailer, then I would say open it just a little bit more than you normally do. Okay, I'm going to close that jump ring. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and then we'll close this jump ring. Make sure to get as good a closures as you possibly can on everything. And this is probably a good time to mention this too, especially if you're going to make these to sell or as gifts. It is very nice, like I can see a seam up here on this jump ring. It is very nice where you can to move your seams between the 2 small O-rings when that is available to you. Okay, so here I can grab onto these and I can move my seam into the inside, and then we won't have that option on these outside ones that I just did. So, you know, again, it's always our goal to close our jump rings as perfectly as possible, but you know, that is a lifelong pursuit to get your jump rings perfect. So in the case with these, let's just move them to the center of the 12mm O-rings. Okay, and we just want this to be as invisible as possible. We don't want people to see the seams of our jump rings, and as you make this, you'll probably have a tendency to have them all on one side, so it should be fairly easy to clean up, but you can see I've cleaned that up pretty well. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to add to the bottom next, and then I'm going to add to either side of this, okay, to get this complete. So I'm going to pause here so you don't have to watch me do this whole step, and then we will come back and do a little bit more. Okay, so as you can see, I have finished up the whole center portion of this. We're almost done. I've laid out the next step. So the next thing we're going to do is just add bracers. And that's going to connect all these 4 sections together. And it'll help it lay evenly too. So this is a nice part to add. So we don't have things overlapping, like see here how this is sitting up. So we're just going to pick up our 2 6mm O-rings. So the only time we don't do that is on the very first step. Just so you can keep that in mind if you want to make 20 more of these. I love making these. Okay, so we connect there. And then we're going to pass through these 2 again. And we're going to connect over to the next component. We're just going through the 12mm O-rings that connect to the center. Okay, and then just like before, I went ahead and cleaned everything up, but you can tuck your seams of your jump rings inside the 6mm O-rings to hide them. Since this is an ornament and it's not a piece of jewelry that's going to be worn, I don't think stuff will get moved around a lot, so they'll probably stay there. Okay, now I'm going to go to my next one. I have to pick up my 6s first. It's always harder to talk while making. But you need to know how to do this, so hopefully I've gotten better at talking and crafting at the same time through the years. Been doing this for a while now, so I do try, but it is very easy to lose your concentration when you're trying to talk through a step and explain to somebody else what to do while you're actually working with your hands. The hands and the mouth aren't necessarily connected to one another. Okay, so you can see we've got these top two, and I'm going to do these next two, and then I'll be back to show you how we're going to finish this up, and you're going to love it. Okay, so we are at the final steps for finishing up this Victorian snowflake. So I will just show you, I've laid these out. So we're going to put beads on all 4 of the points. And then we're going to also add beads to all 4 of the spacers. Now, can you go further than that? Of course, you can add as many beads to this as you want to. But for my purposes, I thought this was a great setup so that we can really accentuate all our points. We can accentuate the in-betweens. We have a beautiful gold beaded edge going all the way around. But you can keep going on this if you want to. So if you want to add more jump rings and beads, by all means, please do so. And then let me see what you did. Because I really, you know, when I added the beads to this, I love it. I just think it's so pretty. Okay, so the first one we're going to add is our 6mm bead. So this is our big one, and this one is going to be the most challenging on our 12mm O-rings. It's a little tight, but it's doable. Okay, and the reason that the beads sit really nicely is that we have 2 O-rings here. So whenever you have a pair, it creates a dip in between, and that is going to keep a bead in place very nicely. Okay, so you see this little crack in between the 2 O-rings. That's what makes this work. First of all, it's tight, so it's not going to move anywhere. And secondly, you know, you have that little place where the bead can sit. Okay, so that's our 6mm bead. And then we're going to add our 8mm beads. Now, whenever you add beads, you want to pick up the bead first and then go around the O-rings. And this is going to be much easier because, of course, the bead's so much smaller. This size really fits perfectly. But, you know, because the the rubber kind of moves with you, so that's why it's forgiving. Okay, so you see I have one small one on that side, and now I'm going to pick up my second small bead. So these are 8s, so I had a 6 in the center, and then we're doing 1/8. I'm sorry, we're doing a size 8 seed bead on either side. And the jump rings we're using are 20 gauge 1/8 for all of these. Okay. Oops. Didn't make sure my bead was going in the right place, but see how when I pushed that up and it landed in this groove, you know, now it's there. Unless you forcibly move it, it's there. Okay. And then I'm going to show you, I'm just going to show you on the side. So I'm going to pick up my size 6, and these are going on to the 6mm O-rings. Funny how all these numbers are matching up. Okay, and I'm going to pass through. Now these are just a little bit skinnier than the 12mm O-ring, so that's why the 6 is going to fit beautifully here. You're not going to have to struggle with it as much as you did that first one. Okay, and again, that goes in the center, and we've got a pair of 6mm O-rings here, so there's a nice groove for the bead to set itself into. And then we're just going to add our 8s on either side. Okay, so we're going to do that all the way around, like I said, on all 4 points, and then at all 4 of the bracer points that we put in between to hold our components together. And then you're going to have one stunning ornament. And the only last thing I will tell you is that I like the idea of fishing line for this. You could perhaps skip one of your beads that's on the top, like the 6mm or the size 6 bead, but instead of doing that, I got out some fishing line, and I was able to string it right through with no problem. So I like that for hanging the ornament because it's real tiny. And I just tucked it through right behind here, and there was enough of a groove to get in there. Okay, so we're just going to keep going all the way around, all 4 points, all 4 bracers, and I have a finished one here for you to see. And it even has its hanger on it, so I can show you that more close up. Isn't this so pretty? I just, when I added the beads and I added all that sparkle to this, I just fell in love with it. I love this. I want to make lots and lots and lots of them for Christmas. So anyway, this is it. And I'll just show you, I don't know if you'll be able to see this because of course this fishing line is so invisible, but I just went through the jump ring back here, and it's just sitting behind the bead, so it's not going to interfere with your design at all. Okay, so I hope you had a great time learning to make this. I love it when the holidays come along. It's fun to do ornaments instead of doing jewelry all the time, and seeing what shapes I can come up with, and three-dimensional objects, and adding beads and adding sparkles. I just have a great time with it. So I hope you do too. I hope you'll give this project a try. You can get the full kit with all the supplies included, as well as a photo and written tutorial at beadmeastory.com. And I sure hope that you will like and follow us on YouTube. We would really appreciate your support. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.